Mike, one of the leaders of the Tens described in Enoch, the leaders of this rebellious faction of watchers that descended to Mount Hermon, is called Azazel. And in a later chapter it says, and the whole earth was made desolate by the deeds of the teaching of Azazel, and over him write all the sins. In Leviticus, there's this weird thing about the goat that's released into the wilderness for Azazel, and on him was all the sins of the... What's the connection there?
The writer of Enoch is hearkening back to their Hebrew Bible. This is what they're doing. They're not just freewheeling. Okay, they're looking at the Hebrew Bible and they are interpreting it. They are doing exegesis. All of the systematized demonology here, and Azazel is one of these points connected to the Satan figure, right? Scholars will say, well, you read all that, none of that's in the Old Testament. You know, this must have come from Persian Zoroastrianism or something like that, or they're just making stuff up. But what they're doing in this period is not making new stuff up just out of the ether. They are ferreting data points from the Hebrew Bible, and then they're thinking about them. How do they go together? What's the relationship of these things? And this one, I think, is a really significant one, because what are the creepy things that are associated with evil and death and the first rebel? Because the first rebel brought estrangement from God and death. We didn't have Sheol. We didn't have a need for an underworld, a place of the dead, until we have death. How does that place and that person get described? Well, it gets described with desert motifs. You get weird creatures that, like owls and jackals and ostriches.
Yeah.
They were associated with living in places that were barren and desolate, where people don't live or don't want to live or can't live. And so the mental association was, this is a place that would look like a place that's under God's judgment. It's the anti-Eden. Anti-Eden is a big theme in biblical thought.
Right.
And so these things, when the writers use them, desert, creatures, realm of the dead, the sin, okay? These are data points that get systematized over here. And so it's very natural if you connect Azazel, who is what? He's post-Genesis 3. He's also post-Genesis 6, also post-Genesis 11, and have him associated with where they get sent, okay? Because you have the crack in the earth, Duda-El in the book of Enoch, and it's out there in the desert somewhere. He lives in some hole at the bottom of the abyss, and it's the underworld. I mean, you get all these points. But to associate that guy with Satan and with Azazel, okay, because this is where you send sin in the Day of Atonement, Leviticus 16, he's not getting paid off with a bribe or a sacrifice. The goat that goes out to the wilderness is not sacrificed. It's not a sacrifice to a foreign deity. This is where you put sin, and sin gets driven to where it belongs. All of these things make sense, and they get systematized in the intertestamental period, and then they get moved into the New Testament, because New Testament writers are looking at that and going, hey, that makes sense. All these data points are in our Bible, and that makes sense to connect them that way. So good for us. Somebody helped us read our Bible. That's what's going on in the relationship between these different kinds of literature.